Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. From myteenlifecoach.com, we have Cameron O'Brien joining us here today. Normally we have Liesl Lane. She's away, but one of our other Teen Life coaches is joining us today. How are you doing, Cameron?
Jill, so good to be with you. Thank you so much for having me on today. Yes, Liesl is on a well-deserved break. So I have the honor of filling in for her for the next 2 weeks. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Cameron O'Brien. I am the coaching associate and content manager for My Teen Life Coach. I am a professional life coach and I have certifications in youth coaching, academic resilience coaching, and career discovery coaching. And as Liesl shared at My Teen Life Coach, we use evidence-based tailored strategies to work with teens and their families to set them up to thrive in their everyday lives. So it's a real joy. It's hard work. It's amazing and fun. And Liesl is absolutely the best person to do it with.
I know. Well, I don't know much about you. So let's start off by finding out about you. Where are you from? How did you get involved with coaching and teens? And tell me a little about your background. Thank you.
For sure. Yes. And I'm so excited to speak with you about this today, Jill, because I am a former reporter and TV person myself. Yes.
You get it. Yes. It's like got to be on all the time. And I apologize. I have something in my eye. So that happens sometimes. Oh my gosh. Wow. From whereabouts?
So I was a local, before becoming a coach, I was a local reporter and anchor in Youngstown, Ohio, and in Portland, Maine.
Awesome.
Yes, I worked the general assignment beat. I worked for an NBC station and a CBS station in those towns. And journalism has just been a cornerstone of my life in the way that I coach and just the way that I am as a person, as I'm sure it is with you. You know, it just impacts the way that you exist in the world when you work as a journalist. So that is a big part of my heart here for coaching, because I decided to work with youth because I was inspired by the work that I did as a journalist with community and youth. So that's the start of my story is with journalism.
So you're into communications, clearly have a knack for talking to people like myself, a lot of people, I'm assuming. And is who inspired you to get into that field? Just curious.
Yes. So I'm so lucky. I have family that is in the journalism space. So I grew up watching an aunt who was an anchor, and I have a cousin who was a correspondent. And so for me, it just felt like a very natural thing to do. And interestingly enough, when I went to college, I didn't take journalism as my major. I was a sociology major because I was interested in learning more about the way that structures and systems impact the individual and society. So I took that sociology lens with me into the field as a journalist so that I could better understand the stories that people were telling me in the community.
Now, can I ask you a question?
For sure.
Do you miss that hustle and bustle and grind of getting that story in before the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing like being a journalist. I feel like just the ability to be out with people and see so many different things every day. The grind is no other. Journalists, are powered by coffee and not much sleep. That was hard. And I was a morning reporter. I worked all of the different shifts. So it definitely gets tiring, but the work is so wonderful, especially when you have a team of like-minded, correspondents around you who want to do the same thing, which is serve their community.
So then what was your take on leaving that field, or are you still in it as well, and moving over to becoming a coach? To explain that process for me.
Yes, I'll always have my foot in the media door. I like to say I still do some writing of my own on the side. I'm no longer in front of the camera in that capacity. But yes, so my work with youth really inspired me to kind of leave journalism and see if there was a more direct way that I could fulfill that passion and interest that I had developed on the field. As a journalist, we cover so many stories, from wonderful stories with best times of people's lives to, tragedy. community. And so I covered a lot about child hunger or inequity that children across the country were facing. And then also got to cover these wonderful organizations like a group called City Kids Care in Youngstown, Ohio, that is just doing the most amazing work to uplift kids in the community who have low resources, to encourage them to do more. And so seeing that and telling those stories is what allowed me to say, okay, I need something more and leave journalism a little bit behind, although I miss it, and still tap in quite regularly as a freelance writer, but also find a way to just work with youth directly and understand the exact struggles that they were having, so that I could figure out how to be a resource for that struggle.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that I did that was as a tutor. That was my foray into working with youth. I decided, well, I'm a journalist, so why don't I tutor in writing and in speech and other subjects? And through that, I was able to work with so many kids. This is around 2020 at this time, so we're right in the middle of the pandemic. So I'm working with a lot of kids who are taking school remotely,
Yeah.
and I'm tutoring them. And
Yeah.
what I'm noticing is that there is such a major gap in social emotional learning that was happening for them, right? They
Yeah.
were sitting at the computer, they were doing their classes online for an hour, but then that was it. And then they were isolated. And teens need people. We're all pro-social creatures. We love being around other people. And I really started to see firsthand how that isolation was impacting the confidence and motivation and really hope of some of the youth that I was working with. So I got really curious and started looking for solutions. And the solution that I came upon was the Youth Coaching Institute, which is the same
Oh,
institute that Liesl got her training from. We were colleagues there. And she also taught me as well.
awesome.
Yes, and so youth coaching was what I saw could fill that gap. It
Got it.
was the thing that could coexist alongside them doing schoolwork, but that worked on personal development, social emotional skills, learning how to make friends, find your values, navigate tough situations.
Yeah.
And so coaching is what is the very space to do that thing. And so when you do coaching specifically with youth, you give young folks the opportunity to have all of these like learn all of these lessons that I learned in my 20s.
Yeah.
And so just the ability to set them up for success was so attractive to me. And as somebody who loved working with people, just loves helping people, that's why I became a
Clearly.
journalist. I'm a helper.
Hmm. Yep.
So it was just, it made perfect sense for me. And so I started working as a coach after getting my certifications.
Great. And again, we have new listeners each and every week. So someone may be tuning in. I'm familiar with Liesl and My Teen Life Coach. So let's explain it and break it down a little bit about the types of services that you all provide.
Yes, absolutely. So my teen life coach is just the perfect opportunity for teens who are going through really anything in their lives to get coaching support. I'm sure Liesl has talked about the wellness spectrum before, where there are people who are on the negative side of the spectrum of being well. Those are people who aren't functional and belong in therapy spaces where they can resolve deep emotional trauma before moving to the coaching space so that they can work on finding their goals and then striving for them and achieving. And so what we do at at My Teen Life Coach is set kids up for success, to strive and thrive. We do that through academic lenses. We do that through career discovery. So if somebody comes to us trying to figure out what exactly they want to do with their life, they're not quite sure if they want to go to college or if they want to just go and find a career straight away. Academically, we work with kids in all stages. We have middle schoolers and high schoolers and folks in college, and we deal with a large range of things in the academic space, from figuring out better study habits to what do I really
Hmm.
love and how can I use the motivation for the thing I love to get the work done. As we know, teens can have a hard time finding that motivation to get through the homework. So helping them discover what it is that they are passionate about and letting that passion drive them and allow them to thrive and achieve. We also work in just everyday life spaces too, not just career and school, but how are relationships with family, with friends, with others? Are we social? Do we want to be more social? Perhaps we're an introvert teen who wants to figure out a way to make more
Yeah.
friends and do the hard things, be social. Coaching is the perfect space to explore those things and to gain that confidence. So those are some of the types of things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And we work with teens ranging from 13 younger to all the way through, their mid 20s, mid to late 20s.
Wow, this is amazing. So you mentioned academics to start. Let me ask, are you actually like tutoring over like a Zoom call like this? Do you get assignments? Do you help guide kids? And what are the age ranges as well?
Yes, absolutely. So the interesting thing about coaching is that it's not quite tutoring. As a tutor, I would sit with the kids, literally with their
Yep.
homework, help them get through the problems.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching is more about strategy, talking big picture. How are we going to approach this thing so that you can get it done on your own?
Yep.
That is more so the strategy. So, say a perfect candidate for coaching, we've had clients come in who are struggling in certain classes and can't really figure out what's going on. We don't necessarily look at the homework or the tests per se, but we instead say, okay, what's happening in this situation as a whole? What are some things that this teen can do to advocate for themselves, to make this experience that is hard right now
Yep.
a little bit easier? And so that's kind of what we focus on in coaching, is giving the teen the skills and the strategies to put into action to change situations for themselves and their own lives. And that age range, again, is middle school all the way through college. We've had grad students as
Yep.
well. That's the wonderful thing about youth coaching, is that the spectrum can be quite large. We often think that 18-year-olds are kick them out of the nest and go on and you know how to be an adult and have it figured out, and that's not really true. And so we make space for that. It's to make space for older teens and emerging adults to come to coaching to figure out how they want to navigate their lives as an independent, autonomous adult.
Great. That's awesome. Can we talk about specifics about some of the people you're helping and what you've helped them accomplish and the things that, people out there might say, well, my teen has this problem or it needs this type of guidance. Could you give us some more examples?
Absolutely. So one client that I can think of was a client in college, and they came to me burnt out. They were senior year, had gotten through the other 4 years, went to a super rigorous college, a very, good student, cared, but they were in their fall and they had the career path, that they had to choose ahead of them. They had big exams to
Yep.
finish as a senior, and they came to coaching saying, you know what? I don't have the motivation to do any of this.
Yep.
I am so burnt out. And I'll tell you, Jill, that is really what a lot of the clients that we see, we're dealing with burnout. Maybe it's academic burnout. Like, I've worked very, very hard and there's still a massive academic mountain in front of me that I have to climb, and I don't
Oh,
have
yeah.
to climb it. Or career. I've started this career, I'm 2 years in, but my heart's not here and I don't feel like I'm performing very well. So those are two types of burnout that often people come to seek coaching for. But with this specific client, she was facing academic burnout. And the question for her was, how was she going to get through the next 8 months? How was she going to be able to cross that line with her bachelor's degree in hand, complete
Yeah.
the thing that she had worked so hard for? So, what we worked on in coaching was figuring out why she felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
We went into her history. She told me about how long she had been performing, how much she had expected of herself. She graduated high school and then she went to a pre college program in the summer, didn't even take the summer off.
Yeah.
before going into school. So getting that client to understand, wow, I've really maxed
Wow.
out
That's
my capacity.
mhm.
I didn't notice because I've been going, but coaching gives you the space to stop and take a look around and see everything that's been going on. So once the teen had an understanding of that context, it's wow, okay, now I get why I'm burned out. Now I understand why I have
Yeah.
no motivation.
Mhm.
Then the question becomes, okay, well, what can I do to get back to the person I was, the
Yeah.
person I want to be? And that's where we start focusing on the resilience building part with our teens, developing those skills and tools that they can use to better their lives. And with burnout, guess what it starts with? Self care. That is the start to healing from burnout, building that resilience to develop capacity. It is self-care. And it's so funny, my teens often don't like hearing this. They're like, what do you mean, like there's no quick fix, like I can't find an easier. And no, the thing is, right, we've burnt out. We're a train, we've been on the track, we've lost our wheels, and now we're stopped. And the way that we get ourselves back together is by putting our pieces back together, by taking the time to figure out, okay, what's missing for me and filling it in. Whether that's I'm not getting enough sleep, or I'm not really hanging out with people right now. I haven't done anything fun. Like I want to go and have an adventure, do something fun to make my life a little bit better. Figuring out what's missing and then
Yeah.
filling in those pieces so that you can get that feeling of being rejuvenated,
I
replenished.
love your energy. You got great energy. My
Oh, thank you
goodness.
so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it's
great.
just
The kids
I
can clearly benefit from this. They need someone like you.
yes, and it's because I went through it as a teen myself. I
Tell me.
remember
Perfect. Tell us.
yes, being a teen and not having this. I too was a super high performing kid. I did very well in school. I was very driven and motivated. It was expected of me to go to college. I expected that of myself as well, but I didn't listen to my mind and my body when it was telling me it was burnt out. I kept going. I kept staying up, doing the
Mm.
late nights. I kept living on coffee, isolating
Sorry.
myself,
Ah,
you know. Right. That's real. Yeah. And so I realized I got to a point where I was past college. I was able to make it past college, but I went into journalism. And as you know, journalism is an amazing career, but it's also very intense. You're
mhm.
dealing with people as they go through either the most amazing or the most tragic thing that has happened in their lives, and that's a very intense thing to navigate. And I was navigating that with very little energy left because of how burnt out I was from college. And so as I was doing my work as a journalist, I noticed physically just how fatigued and tired I
Oh,
would feel. And just it started taking a real toll on my mental and physical health. And so me stepping away from journalism was an opportunity for me to say to myself, okay, what do I need for
yeah.
me to
Yeah.
live the life that I want? And so that's why I'm so passionate about coaching, because I've been coached, because I have a coach. Every coach should have a coach. And so I know what it's like to have the space
Yeah.
to process these things, to slow down, to say, okay, what do I need and how do I meet my needs, answer myself, and having a non-judgmental, compassionate accountability partner along your side. And as I was being coached in my mid-20s, I was like, geez, I could have used this at 16.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I was like, wow. So, for me, becoming a youth life coach just made total sense after that.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing some of that. We still have a
Absolutely.
good 8 minutes left here in the show. So what else in particular do you want to share? Any other client experiences or stories or things that we could benefit from for sure?
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking I would talk a little bit about what lessons I taken to coaching from journalism. And I think the cool thing about coaching is that everybody can be their own coach, right? We can all learn the tools and tricks and tips and strategies to try and make our lives a bit better. And we can start that for ourselves. So I thought of three things that I noticed really translated well from journalism to coaching, three things that might be able to make other people's lives better as well, especially when they're dealing with relationships with other people. And the first thing, my first takeaway was the power of listening. Listening is key, especially as a journalist, right? We're trying to remember the details of everybody's stories, and even more so as a coach, because this person is coming to us. This is a safe space where they're telling us what they're dealing with, and it could be very emotionally difficult. So being there to really listen, not for the sake of listening, but for the sake of understanding, for the sake of really trying to empathize with the person is going through. And this is what we would strive to do in our day-to-day lives. A lot of the time, we're trained in everyday life to just listen for how things affect us, right? But the challenge, and what I've learned from journalism and from coaching, is to try and listen in a deeper way, because you might learn more about the person and their situation, and you might be able to better respond to what they need when you're really listening, right? As a coach, it takes me really making sure that I remember the parts of the story that people are telling me, so that I can ask them questions to expand their awareness on those situations. And it's actually a great segue into the next one, which is ask powerful questions.
Yeah, which you're great at.
Powerful questions is the sauce, really, especially as a journalist, to get answers that, you know, often we need, especially in politics, education, government, but especially as a coach, because people are coming to coaching to gain a perspective that they otherwise wouldn't get on their own. So it takes asking really open-ended questions that are pointed at their experience, to allow them to kind of sit back and think about you know, their situation from a different perspective. So those questions usually start with what, or how, or why. Like, what would make life better for you right now? What would be your ideal vision of your life in 5-10 years? Allowing somebody to think about that gives them the opportunity to hope, to feel, oh, this is what I would love to have. And then we use that hope. We use that, you know, the hope that's anchored by that question to say, okay, well, what steps can we take today and tomorrow and the next time we meet to get you closer to that dream?
Yeah.
So it goes along really well with the listening, being able to just ask questions that help people think deeper about themselves and their circumstances. And how can we use this in everyday life? Well, if we're trying to have meaningful conversations and get to know people a little bit better, powerful questions are the way. Try asking a question that starts with why, or why, you know, why did you decide to do this thing?
Who,
Or how
what, where, when, why.
exactly, yes.
Typical
How to
press
make it
release,
happen.
right? Yes.
That's right. That's right. And the last one is that resources matter. As a journalist, we're a resource for our community. We're where people get information so that they can go about living their lives. As a coach, we are a resource for our client. We are what we call a scaffold. We are the bridge, and they use us and that space and the tools that they're able to develop to get from one side to the other. And one thing I was able to realize as a journalist is just, and especially working with communities and injustice, is just how valuable it is to have resources, to have people who understand social emotional learning, who can give kids who are low resourced opportunities to learn things that they wouldn't otherwise get the chance to learn. So that's one of my passions as a coach, is making coaching accessible, because everybody deserves this kind of knowledge. Everybody deserves to understand that self-compassion over guilting and shaming oneself is the way to move forward. All of these tips and tricks that you learn in coaching, everybody could benefit from. So resources really matter. And I think the public way, the way that everybody in their everyday life could apply that one, is just take inventory of, what you have around you. And if you ever have somebody saying, hey, I need, if it's coaching or mental health services, or even if it's just a reference for like a great hotel to stay in, a couple of states over, it's always great to share your knowledge, share what you have, so that other people can have good experiences with what you've learned and gained. Those are, I think, the three major takeaways that I gained from journalism and using coaching, and we could use in everyday life as well.
Beautifully said. Great job.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Awesome. Let us know how we can reach out to you. Could you share, besides the website, phone number, social media pages, any way
Yes,
that we can contact you guys?
absolutely. So our website is www.myteenlifecoach.com. You
Okay.
can call us at 770-235-8202. Our social media page is at My Teen Life Coach on Instagram. We post a lot of stuff there, just helpful tips. We have groups, mastermind groups for parents who are parenting teens and would love to get some support. So make sure you go and check out those resources to see if there's a way that we can make your teen's life a bit better, or give you some support as a parent if you're going through, raising kids, which isn't always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. You don't have any kids yet, do you?
No, but I have a brother and I grew up in a large family, so I remember what it's like.
Liesl has what? Liesl has 3?
Yes, Liesl has 3 awesome kids of her own. So
and I got 2.
all about the
soon. I'm working on a 5 and 7. They're going to be teenagers soon.
Yes.
All right. Well, send my regards to her. Fantastic
Absolutely.
job. And looking forward to next week. We'll be back in touch then.
Absolutely. Yes. Sounds
Perfect.
great.
Thank you so much, Cameron. You have a great day. Thank you. And to all of our listeners and viewers, stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.